Alright, like, click, subscribe, do all that. You already know what time it is. It's Netflix time. This movie's called The Soul. While investigating the death of a businessman, a prosecutor and his wife uncover occult secrets as they face their own life and death dilemma. This movie just came out. It's 2 hours and 10 minutes long. I swear these Taiwanese movies be off the Richter scale, son. Spoiler alert, let's get it. So right at the back, we start with the police getting a call from this house. This maid opens up the door for the police. They discover this demonic, satanic symbol on Dr. Wang's door. They go in the room and everybody's shocked, including the maid, to find out that Mr. Wang is dead. Mrs. Wang is laying there. The officer checks to see if Mrs. Wang is still alive. And she wakes up, she's holding this crazy ass scepter. She's looking around like, what the fuck just happened? Then we cut to the scene with this married couple. Miss Powell is pregnant. Liang and Mr. Liang is he's in his 3rd stage of cancer. But we found out they both work on the police force and he's happens to be a police chief. But it turns out his situation is even worse because he's developing brain tumors, which will automatically get him into stage 4 cancer. The doctor tells him there's a treatment to slow down the process. The only problem is it won't be developed until next year. Powell talks about she's willing to sell the farm just to make some extra money. He's like, ain't no point in doing that. Besides, it's not even going to make a dent into how much we ought to owe for the RNA surgery. Then he hears about the Wang Shang murder that just took place. So as they're taking Mrs. Wang, or Li, into custody, Liang's been on temporary leave, obviously, for cancer matters, but he wants to come back and do this one more case so his wife and child be financially secure. The boss is real hesitant on it because of his condition, but because he's been so good for so long, he allows him to come back and do this one case. Now comes the investigation. Lee's about to tell her side of the story. Lee says she heard strange noises waking up at night and walked towards the room, which had the satanic symbols on the door when she looked at it. She went in and found Wang Shengsun's son, Yu, performing some type of crazy ritual. Wang Shi was powerless to do anything because he had cancer too, so he was trying to dial SOS, call for help. Then the son got mad and beat the hell out of him with that metal object that was in Lee's hand when they picked her up. Lee tried to interfere, but she couldn't stop Yu. So basically, that's the story that she gave to the police. While that's going on, Liang is investigating the evidence. Then they talk to the maid. Her story is she heard crazy ass noises when she woke up out of bed. But before she could check on anything, she seen Yu running out the door. She was walking around trying to figure out what the heck was going on. But before she could even get up the steps is when the police came, and then you know the rest from there. So then we go back to Lee again. She talked about a situation a couple weeks before where Yu blamed Wang Shi for his mom's death. See, Lee is Wang Shi's second wife. That's not Yu's mother. We'll talk about her in a minute. Now, Yu's got all these crazy ass tattoos on him. One in particular on the middle of his back is the same symbol that was on his father's door. So now back at the office, Liang's back at work. Everybody's happy to see him back except his wife, obviously, because she doesn't want him overexerting himself. I mean, you know, he's in the 3rd stage of cancer. Now, they've been looking up this guy named Dr. Yan. Dr. Yan is the head of the RNA company that they run. Him and Wang Shi are part CEOs. So Dr. Wang has stated in interviews that the property value of the company has been going down immensely. And because Wang Shi has control of most of the assets, they're assuming that Dr. Wang had Yu kill Wang Shi to retrieve the papers for financial gain. Of course, with the little bit of evidence they have right now, they can't prove that shit, but that's their assumption right now. Then they start talking to the maid again. Then they give us a little bit of backstory about Su Yin. That's Yu's mom. She was abusing him for looking like his father or some shit. Then they showed Su Yin's funeral. How she died, we're not exactly sure yet. After corroborating stuff, Powell goes to the crime scene. She looks on the ground and finds one of those same crazy ass circles. And I want y'all to see this shit. Look. What the fuck? That bag just lifted up and fell, yo. So at this point, you're thinking to yourself, is this house haunted? Then for some reason in her mind, she starts seeing this lady hanging over a balcony, throwing a bunch of papers and then dropping to her death. Like, the fuck? But no, she wasn't just seeing that. That was actually footage of how Su Young died a year ago. So apparently back then, she was playing with demonic mutation circles too. So in Wang Shi's house, there were cameras set up all over the place. The thing they didn't know was there was actually a camera set up in Lee's room also. So they watched days of footage of her not being able to sleep. She's spazzing out. Felt like she was being possessed. Trust me, it was some off-the-wall shit. So Lee talks about how she got married a year ago, how she feels like it was a ghost inside the house or something. Like she said she had visions about actually seeing Su Yin in the corner of the closets. So Yang was like, that's who you were talking to on the tapes? And she's like, why y'all focused on me? Y'all haven't found Yu yet? He's like, yeah, we got our men on it right now, but why do you know so much about chemistry? He gave some bullshit about mom used to be a biochemist or something like that. After that, Liang goes home and studies up more on Lee's tapes. And he knew that the killer that attacked Wang Shi was left-handed. She started using her right hand, but more so she started switching over to her left hand. In one of the videos, Dr. Wang was visiting Lee. So he does some research with Dr. Wang. Turns out in the low, he was real close to Wang Shi's first wife and second wife. Now, the one thing that baffled me when it came to Lee, if she knew she was being recorded, why was she still doing all this stuff with Dr. Wang? Oh, by the way, this is the video with Dr. Wang and Lee, if I was talking about. Why they holding each other's hands doing all this stuff in Wang Shi's house? So in present time, Dr. Wang's doing the presentation. The police come by asking him questions about his involvement. Then Liang shows him the video. Then he shows him tabloids talk about affairs and all this other stuff. Then Dr. Wang looks at him like, yeah, it's just tabloids. Unless you got some proof of evidence, come back otherwise. But he did tell him he was there the day that Su Yang died. A year ago, he was driving past. That's when he saw her body land on the ground. Liang thinks it's because of the love affair that drove her to suicide, especially when Wang Xi had got cancer. But it's like, damn, Dr. Wang, you was smashing Xi and Li? Then he talks about how much he sacrificed for Wang, but we're not really sure exactly what he sacrificed yet. Back in the car, Liang's talking about the realization of the matter. His wife is talking about souls existing, so it's like it's a kind of a conflict between the two. So the next day, apparently, they found a new lead. I'm assuming it's where Yu Yu's hiding out at. While in the back, Powell loads up some type of voice information on an iPad or a tablet. Well, anyway, they get to this cabin. There's a bunch of mutation circles in there with Yu Yu's pictures on it, so it's like, yeah, this is his spot. Before you know it, he jumps out of nowhere and starts attacking the cops, but eventually they detain him. Now, they got him in a room, and after a while, he confesses to everything. Then everybody, including Lee, goes to Wang Xi's funeral where they cremate his body. See? Cremated. Then we get to the trial again to testify against Yu Yu. And then for whatever reason, she cut herself and started spewing blood out of her hand. Like, the fuck? So after they did that, they went in the interrogation room and got her face-to-face with Yu Yu. And then she starts explaining about this letter that they gave her. She somehow gets possessed and actually starts talking to Yu Yu like she's Yu Yu's mom. It's like, what the fuck? Then afterwards, she collapses. So we're only halfway through this movie. Yu Yu is guilty or whatever like that, but somehow there's something that's throwing Mr. Yang off. But it's like, right now, just focus on your pregnant wife and getting this treatment for your before you go into fourth stage of cancer. But when she's driving him home, he ends up having a seizure and shit. But I'm thinking to myself, after everything that's been happening, was he really having a seizure or was he being possessed? I mean, like, what the heck is going on? Back in the hospital, Dr. Wan and Yi have a conversation. Then we go to Mr. Liang in the hospital. So after the seizure, his wife said he's been in a coma for like 2 days. He's trying to do everything himself and he knows he can't and all that stuff. And besides, he's on his fourth stage of cancer now. Brain tumors and hip. At this point, I think he was just glad to take one more case so he could help out his family. And he just so happened to coincidentally get a seizure right after the case was over. Then we go back to Wang Xi's house. Then we got Lee running out the house talking about Dr. Wang is trying to kill her. Wait a minute, why is Dr. Wang trying to kill her? What the fuck? I feel like I missed something. What in all of the fuck? Well, anyway, Liang's still trying to do police work. And he finds the auto recording that Pow was messing with before hitting up the Yu Yu's hut. Turns out she actually tampered with the shit. Oh, wow. Okay, so the reason she tampered with it because she figured it would incriminate Dr. Wang. But why she protected Dr. Wang? Because he's the only man that can use his RNA research to help out Mr. Yang. I'm like, wow. Yeah, I get you trying to help out your husband, but you did tamper with police evidence. Apparently, she had this conversation with him during the investigation, and she had also talked to Lee about it during the funeral. He's like, I get what you were trying to do for me, I understand, but even the RNA research, even at all that, is basically delaying the inevitable. He's made peace with it, but obviously she hasn't. Yeah, it's pretty fucked. So here we got Miss Lee again. Apparently she has some part of ownership, or that's the reason why Dr. Wang was trying to kill her. My question is, why does she have part ownership of a company that she never even helped build? So in the parking lot, he goes to talk to her one-on-one and finds out her alter ego is actually Wang Xi himself. Like, what the fuck? So apparently the voice message when Wang Xi was trying to call 911 because of Yu Yu, it turns out she pushed Yu Yu off. He ends up escaping. And she was the one that was actually bashing her husband's brains out. The question is, why would she do this if she already had control of the company? A week goes by, Liang's chilling at the house. He gets a surprise visit from Dr. Wan, and now he tells the story. His story goes back 20 years ago when him and Wang Shi were, co-owners of the company. It turns out Wang really loved Wang Shi because he would dress in drag with her. Like, what the fuck is going on? I guess the 2021 term is, he identified as a woman or something like that. So basically, they've been gay from the very start. But being gay wasn't copacetic back then, so to keep up with appearances, he actually married Shi, who was actually part of the company. But Su Shi wasn't really getting her desires fulfilled, so she got it popping with Dr. Wang. Even though on the low, the two CEOs are still fucking with each other. Then 2 years after that, we get a flashback about how Su Chi is tired of Wang Shi cheating on her and all this other stuff, which eventually led to her committing suicide. And Dr. Wang found her on the side of the road, which Wang Shi finally saw the note. I think it was some type of suicide note. They didn't give it in English to translate it. Right after his wife died is when Wang Shi got cancer. And ever since then, he wasn't thinking with his right state of mind, but he's still part of CEO. So they had this invention that was built underground. And this is how Lee comes to the picture. Lee was actually picked up from an orphanage or something like that, and happened to be the person that was going to be his second wife. And so because they wanted to keep Wang Shi's information intact, they transferred his brain cells, DNA, all that other stuff over into Lee's head. Don't ask me how they did it. But in the process would delete anything that she knew about herself. So that's why when Mr. Liang was looking at the tapes, she was doing all these awkward things and seeing an ex-wife and everything like that because she was seeing it through the mind of Wang Shi. They also got her auto-inseminated to get pregnant. So when she pops out a son or a daughter, all of Wang Shi's cell and DNA will be inside that child. So it's like, what the fuck? But it got to a point somehow where Wang Shi couldn't trust her anymore. Unfortunately, she overheard the conversation. And that's when she took it upon herself to kill Wang Shi. And that's basically what the recorded conversation was about. Then he talks about back when they were in the hospital. She talks about getting away with it, relax, we're in the clear, everything like that. Now, when she heard the conversation with Wang Shi, she didn't know on the other side of the conversation was Dr. Wang. So that's why she felt like she could trust him when they went back down to the lab to do more STEM research. But then she looked at him and was like, nah, man, you about to try to erase my shit. Fuck that. So she's like, I ain't dying with you. She's struggling to get out the chair. Then she stabs him with some scalpels. He swipes her with some scalpels. He tries to choke her out. So that's what happened when she was calling the police talking about Dr. Wang was trying to kill her. Liang looked up some things too to figure out like, yeah, he's probably telling the truth. The only problem is we don't have no evidence. But he comes up with an idea that he thinks is going to make her confess. So he goes to take a meeting with Lee, and Dr. Wang's right behind him with a mask on. He sits in the other room. Now it's just Liang talking to Lee, or Wang Shi, or however you want to put it. Bottom line, she confesses a bunch of stuff that gets recorded. Dr. Wang comes in the room, knocks her out. It goes in the news that she stepped down from the corporation. And because they had evidence on her, she confessed to everything in court. Yeah, man, that shit was wild. In the final scene, we have Lee behind bars, and she actually gets a visit from Powell with her baby. My question is, I don't understand why she went to go visit her. I mean, they look similar. Could it be possible they're related somehow? And then it just cuts to black. All I can really say is, wow. 2 thumbs up, I highly recommend this joint. The Soul on Netflix. Check it out. Like, click, subscribe, do all that. You know what time it is. Slick DZ, y'all DZ, mister. Big. Could have got that slogan.